The rain came like a silent ambush, cold and heavy, soaking the red earth of Lagos until it turned into sticky clay. Kathy stood beneath the torn umbrella of her small roadside stall, guarding her puff-puffs and Zubo bottles like a mother hen shielding her chicks. Her fingers trembled not from the rain's chill, but from the ache buried deep within her chest, the ache that had not left since that dreadful call 2 months ago. She'd once had warmth, safety, even love, a miracle she never believed she deserved. But miracles, for someone like her, an orphan with no name and no roots, never seemed to last. A familiar voice called from the roadside, cutting through her fog. "Kathy!" It was Madame Tayo, one of the neighborhood women, balancing a toddler on her hip beneath a shiny nylon raincoat. "Give me 2 packs of chin-chin, quick, quick, before this rain washes me away." Kathy forced a smile, already reaching for the packets. "I added extra, rain bonus." Madame Tayo laughed, handing over crumpled Naira notes. "You and that good heart of yours. One day he go carry you reach heaven. No joke." Kathy smiled again, but her eyes flicked to the reflection of a sleek black Prado slowly making its way down the potholed road. The license plate was customized, too polished for a place like this. She didn't flinch. Luxury cars didn't stop for girls like her. Not anymore. But 3 years ago, one did. "I'm not leaving till you give me your number," the tall man had said, leaning casually against her stall. She'd looked up, sweaty from frying puff-puff, a little embarrassed at how good he looked in joggers and a white tee, his clean-shaven face and neatly faded haircut giving him the air of someone too rich to bother with the snack stand. "Olga," she had scoffed, "I sell puff-puff, not my number." He laughed, disarming and genuine. "You sell happiness. That first bite almost made me cry." "So you came back to give review?" she'd teased. "I came to marry you." Her jaw dropped and he had extended a hand. "I'm Lewis, and I'm serious." And serious he was. He returned every day, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone, sitting with her under the sun, under the rain, helping her wrap snacks, chasing flies from the Zubo. He wasn't ashamed. He walked her home to the orphanage each night, holding her hand like she was made of glass. The staff gossiped. Strangers whispered. But Kathy, she smiled more in those weeks than she had in 19 years. "You're not ordinary," Lewis had said one night under the old mango tree near the gate. "You grew up without love, and yet you smile like you've had everything. I want to be your everything." She blinked at him, tears gathering but not falling. "Your family won't accept me." "They'll learn," he said. They didn't. The day he took her home to meet them, his mother, Olivia, sat like a queen on her plush velvet sofa, inspecting her like she was a counterfeit handbag. "You sell snacks?" she'd asked, arching one perfect brow. "Yes, Ma," Kathy had answered quietly. Olivia had turned to her son. "This girl? This stray?" "Her name is Kathy," Lewis had snapped, "and I love her." His father, Mr. Naji, remained silent, a silence that screamed louder than any insult. His sister Tina barely glanced Kathy's way before muttering, "She won't last here." But Lewis loved her, and so they married. Not with blessings, not with joy, but with love. That was enough, or so she thought. He painted the guest room for the baby even before she told him she was pregnant. He read parenting books, cooked her burnt toast on mornings she felt too weak to get up. "You're spoiling me," she'd giggle. "That's the plan," he'd grin. But the walls of the mansion never warmed to her. Olivia gave cold nods at dinner. Tina ignored her. and Mr. Naji never said more than 5 words. Yet Louis stood by her, rubbing her back when she cried, holding her hand when she flinched at the whispers. "Endure it, Kathy," he whispered one night, forehead pressed against hers. "For us. For our child." She was 5 months pregnant the day her world collapsed. Louis had a quick business trip to Abuja. "Just a day trip," he said, kissing her belly. "Take care of our little warrior, okay?" She waved him off, watching his car disappear past the gate. That afternoon, she was frying plantain when the landline rang. No one ever called that phone. She answered with her elbow, hands greasy. "Hello? Is this Mrs. Louis Naji?" a man's voice asked, too formal. Her heart stuttered. "Yes." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, madam. There was an accident on the expressway, a black Mercedes. The plate matches your husband's. He didn't survive." The line went dead. The spoon slipped from her hand into the hot oil, and then she screamed. They didn't wait even 2 weeks after the burial. Her presence became unbearable. Tina whispered within earshot, "She doesn't belong here anymore." Olivia replied without a drop of shame, "She never did. They gave her an envelope, some money, and a driver." "You can choose where you want to go," Olivia said, standing in the rain with an umbrella while Kathy, belly heavy, stood shivering. "This was his home," Kathy whispered, voice cracking. "He's gone now," Olivia said coldly, "and so must you." She returned to the roadside, to Puff Puff and Rain, back to survival, back to square one, pregnant, widowed, alone. That night, under the same torn umbrella, she served snacks with trembling hands. A black SUV pulled up, the tinted window rolled down. "You got anything hot? I'm starving," a deep voice barked. She blinked. "Yam balls, meat pie, Zubo. Puff Puff's cold now." "2 yam balls," the man said curtly. She packed them into a nylon bag. "1 $200, she said. "Only got 1,000, he muttered, flipping through a thick wallet. "I can remove 1 ball." He looked at her, then unexpectedly chuckled. "You're serious?" "Snacks aren't charity," she said evenly. He laughed, this time more genuinely. "Fair enough." He handed over 2,000. "Keep the change." She stared at the crisp notes. "Thank you." He paused, eyes scanning the soaked stall. "You always stand here?" "Every day." "Rain or shine," she nodded. "You're wasting something," he muttered. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he waved her off. "Just talking to myself." "People who talk to themselves too much usually go mad," she teased. His lips twitched into the faintest smile. "I'll come again tomorrow, if you're still here." He rolled up the window and disappeared into the storm. The next day he returned. The rain hadn't stopped by the next evening. Kathy's feet were soaked from the puddles and her umbrella now sagged from exhaustion, just like her body. Business was slow. Her stallmate, Mama Joy, had already packed up and gone. Just as Kathy began wrapping her unsold Puff Puffs for storage, the familiar hum of the black SUV returned. It slowed, tires slicing through the watery gravel, and pulled up beside her. The tinted window lowered. "You got any meat pie left today?" the same voice asked, less harsh this time. "Only 2. She handed them over, expecting silence, but instead he offered her a brown paper bag through the window. She blinked. "What's this?" "I passed by one place on the island, picked up a cara and custard. Thought you might want something hot, too." Kathy stared, speechless. "You brought me food." "You looked cold yesterday." She took the bag cautiously. her voice barely a whisper. "You're not trying to sell me real estate, are you?" He chuckled, the sound low and pleasant. "No, I'm Musa. Kathy." They exchanged the words like a secret. "I eat late," Musa said after a moment, tapping his steering wheel. "Might as well eat here again tomorrow, if you don't mind." She looked at him carefully. There was something in his eyes, not flirtation, not pity, just tiredness. She nodded. "I don't mind." As the SUV pulled away, Kathy stood in the drizzle, hugging the warm paper bag to her chest. Her hands shook again, not from cold, not from fear, but something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. By the third visit, she had swept her stall earlier, arranged the puff puffs neatly, and added more spice to the chin-chin. Her hands moved with purpose, even though her back ached and her belly now visibly pushed against the seams of her uniform. At 10 a.m., his SUV rolled up. Kathy pretended not to expect it, though her heart fluttered like a loose curtain in a breeze. Musa wore a plain black polo today. Clean, sharp, understated. "You again," he said with a slight smirk. "Let me guess, Puff Puff still undefeated?" "Better today," she replied with a grin. "Added ginger and nutmeg. Customers like the extra kick." "5, please, and 2 meat pies." She packed the food quickly, gracefully. He watched her move, his eyes briefly lingering on her bump. She noticed. "Do you always come this way?" she asked lightly. "Lately, yes. Estate inspections in the area." "You inspect a lot of estates for someone who only eats Puff Puff," she teased. Musa chuckled but said nothing. As he handed her the money, much more than needed, she shook her head. "That's too much." He met her eyes. "Let me worry about that." The window rolled up again, but this time, before leaving, he paused. "You ever think of expanding?" "Expanding?" she echoed. "Yes, bigger stall, chairs, shade. Your food deserves better than rain and dust." She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came. Nobody had asked her that in years. Nobody had cared if she sold more or less. "I'll think about it," she said finally, voice small. He nodded. "You should." Then he was gone again. The days blurred into a rhythm. Rain, Puff Puff, Musa. Sometimes he brought her meat from upscale markets. Sometimes just warm tea. He never stayed too long. He never asked for too much. And yet his presence filled her mornings with a strange calm. She caught herself watching the road more, adjusting her scarf more carefully, fixing her stall earlier. She hated herself for it, but deep inside, the heart that traitor had started beating again. One late morning, Musa pulled up, and instead of asking for food, he stepped out. Kathy's eyes widened slightly. He looked taller outside the car, his shoulders broader. He walked to the stall casually, hands tucked in his pocket. "You look tired," he said. "I'm fine." She tried to smile, but her hand instinctively touched her belly. Musa saw it. He stepped closer. "You should rest more." "Can't afford to." Her voice cracked a little. I need to keep working. The baby's almost here." Musa looked at her, really looked. "Come sit in the car. Just a few minutes. It's warm." She hesitated. Rain was picking up. She glanced around. The road was empty. She nodded. Inside the SUV, it smelled like leather and something clean, expensive. He adjusted the heater. "Better?" "Yes," she exhaled. Her body sank into the seat like it had finally found softness. A silence stretched between them. The wipers moved back and forth slowly, hypnotically. Then Musa asked, his voice low and careful, "Where's the baby's father?" She stiffened. Her hands clenched in her lap. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed on the foggy window. He died 2 months ago. Car crash. Musa turned to her slowly, pain flashing across his features. I'm sorry. It's okay. Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened. We were married for 7 months. His family hated me. They blamed me for his death, said I brought bad luck, threw me out. I had nowhere to go, so I came back here to survive. Musa didn't speak. He just reached for the glove box and handed her a tissue. Thank you, she whispered. I don't usually cry in front of strangers. I'm not a stranger anymore, he said simply. When Kathy stepped out of the car that day, the rain had stopped. The ground was still wet, the air smelled of smoke and earth, but something inside her had changed. She had shared her grief, and someone had listened without judgment, without agenda. That night, she lay on her mattress and thought about Louis, his laugh, his promises. Then she thought about Musa. The silence, the steady gaze, the quiet kindness. Her hand rested on her belly. Her eyes fluttered shut. For the first time in a long time, her dreams weren't made of shadows. The morning after the rain, the sky over Lagos was the color of wet cement. Kathy stood by her stall earlier than usual, her puff-puff already sizzling in oil, the smell rising into the dawn like incense. Her green dress clung slightly to her back from the humidity, and the sheen on her forehead glowed under the first rays of morning light. Kabiru, the neighborhood gateman with a crooked red cap, strolled by sipping from a bottle of warm malt. Madam Puff-Puff, he called teasingly. Early bird, dey catch customer-o. She laughed, swatting the air. Not only you go buy my puff today if rain fall again. As the sun climbed, so did her hope, and just as expected, the black SUV glided into view. She didn't smile too much. She didn't want to look eager, but her eyes lit up. The window rolled down. Musa looked different today, more tired. His shirt was neatly pressed, but his collar was slightly rumpled, his eyes heavier. Mornin', he said. Meat pie and 1 bottle of Zubo. She packed the items quickly. You didn't sleep well? She asked before she could stop herself. He hesitated. Couldn't stop thinking. He paused, eyes scanning her bump. About things, about you. Her hands stilled. He noticed. Sorry, that came out wrong. No, it didn't, she said quietly. Then added, Me too. Musa leaned back in his seat. Kathy, he began, the name sounding soft in his voice. I want to offer you something. A job. Come cook for me. In my house. No more standing here in the rain. I'll pay you more than this stall brings in. She froze. Cook for you? Yes, I've tasted enough to know you're gifted, and I could use the company. Kathy blinked. But I'm pregnant. I may not move as fast. That's exactly why, he said, tone firmer now. You shouldn't be out here. Let me help, please. She stared at him for a long moment. His face was open, vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. Okay, she said finally, heart thudding. If it's not too much trouble. He gave a rare, genuine smile. It's no trouble at all. That evening, Musa came to pick her up in the SUV. Kathy packed her few belongings into a small black duffel and gave one last look to the stall that had been her entire world. Kabiru opened the estate gate, eyeing them with wide grin. Ah, Oga Musa, don wife, oh, I dey suspect this thing since. Kathy flushed. I'm just his cook, Kabiru. For now, Kabiru winked. Musa laughed, shaking his head. Inside the house, the difference was jarring. The marble floors gleamed under golden lights. The ceilings soared high like cathedral arches. The guest room was airy, its sheets crisp, pillows fluffed like clouds. "This is for me?" Kathy asked in awe. "It's yours," Musa said. "Rest today. You start tomorrow." She sat on the bed, her hand unconsciously resting on her belly. The baby kicked. She exhaled slowly, not from exhaustion, but from disbelief. She had been thrown out, discarded like a broken thing, and yet here she was, somewhere safe, somewhere seen. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, gentle and kind. Kathy rose early, wrapped her headscarf, and stepped into the kitchen. The space was pristine granite counters, polished cutlery, a deep sink that seemed too clean to ever touch soap. She found ripe plantains, fresh tomatoes, and neatly labeled spices. She began to cook yam porridge with ugu leaves. As the aroma filled the house, Kabiru walked in, barefoot in his wrapper and singlet, red cap still slightly crooked. "Oh, Madam Cook, this house done finally wake," she laughed. "Make you no distract me, oh. First day, I no wan burn food." Kabiru nodded solemnly. "I go behave." Just as Musa entered, the scent of the stew hit him. He paused at the door, closed his eyes briefly. "This smells like home," he murmured. She served him quietly. He took one bite and sighed. "God bless your hands." She turned away quickly, cheeks flushed. Days became routine. Kathy woke early, cooked, laughed with Kabiru, and prepared dinner for Musa. He worked long hours, but always came home in time to eat. He never shouted, never rushed her, never asked for more than what she could give. Sometimes they'd sit after dinner, not talking, just sharing space, the hum of the fridge, the soft clink of utensils, and silence that felt full, not empty. One evening, as they sat watching a Nollywood comedy, Kathy turned to him. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you live alone?" Musa didn't answer immediately. He turned off the TV, leaned forward. "I was married once. Her name was Halima. We had 3 kids, or so I thought." Kathy stilled. "What happened?" "The youngest got sick, needed a blood transfusion. My blood didn't match, so they tested. He wasn't mine. None of them were." Her hand flew to her mouth. "Musa, I had tests. Turns out I have extremely low sperm count. Nearly infertile. She lied for years, said they were mine. I raised them like mine." His voice was hollow. "When the truth came out, I crumbled. Divorced her. She took them. And I haven't let anyone close since." Kathy reached for his hand instinctively. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," he said softly. "You understand pain. I see it in you, but I also see strength." She looked down, a tear slipping quietly. "I just do what I must, for this baby." "That strength," he said, squeezing her hand gently, "is why I want to help you." "You already have." "Not enough." That night, she dreamed of Lewis, but when she woke, it was Musa's voice she remembered. The rooster crowed faintly in the distance as a warm golden light spread slowly across the cream-colored curtains in Kathy's guest room. She stirred beneath the soft blanket, one hand instinctively resting on the curve of her belly. For the first time in many months, she had slept through the night without tears, without waking in fear. The quiet of the house wrapped around her like a gentle hand, not the silence of abandonment, but of safety. She rose, tied her wrapper tightly around her waist, and stepped into the kitchen. The familiar rhythm of peeling, chopping, frying had returned, but now there was space, time, even joy. She fried a cara that morning, the oil crackling like applause in the pan. Kabiru wandered in, hair sticking in all directions, holding a banana halfway peeled. Ah, aroma of angels. Madam Kathy, you don't waste time at all. She swatted him with a dish towel. Nah, only your nose sharp this morning. He laughed, and for a moment, the kitchen filled with something long absent life. When Musa came downstairs dressed in his usual crisp native wear, the scent of breakfast greeted him like an old friend. He smiled as he stepped into the kitchen. That smells powerful. Kathy handed him a plate with shy pride. A cara and pap. Simple. He sat down and took a bite. You say simple, but my stomach is doing Thanksgiving. She laughed, and the sound made him glance up. He didn't say it aloud, but he thought it often. She was changing the air in the house, not just with her food, but with her presence, quiet, strong, steady. Days folded into each other like warm blankets. Kathy cooked, rested, arranged flowers in the living room. Musa worked long hours, but he always came home to a hot meal and a woman who asked how his day went and listened without interrupting. And then there was the baby, a growing presence that made Musa pause more often, smile more deeply, ask questions he never thought he would. Do you feel kicks? He asked one evening. She nodded, placing his hand gently on her belly. Like tiny drummers practicing. His eyes widened. That's wow. It's normal, she said, but every time it still surprises me. One afternoon, Kathy found him sitting on the front steps, unusually still. She brought him chilled water, then sat beside him, her dress brushing his arm. You okay? He hesitated. I went back to the hospital today for more tests. She waited. Doctor says if I continue the treatment and change some things, I might still be able to father a child. One day. Kathy didn't speak. Instead, she reached for his hand and held it quietly. Musa looked at her, his throat tight. I didn't expect to feel hope again. Hope is stubborn, she whispered. It doesn't die easy. That night, as she folded laundry in the hallway, he came to her holding a small bag. This is for you, he said. Prenatal vitamins. The doctor recommended them. She blinked. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She took them, fingers brushing his. Thank you, Musa. Thank you for trusting me, he replied, and for staying. I didn't have anywhere else to go, she said honestly. Still, you chose here. She nodded, because here is kind. The following morning, Musa stood at the dining table with a plate of plantains in his hand, looking puzzled. Did you change the recipe? Kathy looked up from the kitchen sink. Yes, a little honey, less salt. He took another bite and smiled. Perfect. Then added, almost awkwardly, You'd make a good chef, not just here, anywhere. She raised a brow. I only ever cooked to survive. Now cook to thrive, he said. She paused, heart thudding a little. Thrive. It was such a big word. A future word. She wasn't used to thinking that far ahead. One cloudy afternoon, Musa offered to take her for a drive. Stretch your legs, change of air. She agreed. As they passed through the bustle of Lagos, the baby kicked again. Kathy smiled, one hand over her belly. She moves more when I'm calm, she said. She knows when it's peaceful. Musa turned his head. She? Yes, Kathy said softly. I don't know for sure, but I feel it. Then she's a fighter, Like her mama. Kathy laughed gently. You think I'm strong? I know you are. They stopped at a hospital, the same one Musa had gone to for his tests. Let's check on the baby properly, he said. Better safe than sorry. She hesitated. This hospital, it's expensive. You're worth it, he replied simply. The receptionist smiled as they walked in. Family? She asked. Yes, Musa said without blinking. She's my family. Kathy felt her throat tighten. The checkup went well. The doctor said the baby was healthy, Kathy was progressing perfectly. You're taking good care of her, the nurse told Musa with a warm smile. He nodded. She's taking care of both of us. On the way home, Kathy was quiet. You didn't have to say I was family, she murmured. Musa glanced at her. I didn't lie. She looked at him then, long and searching. Something passed between them, unspoken but understood. The next evening, Rain returned. Musa brought her a bowl of fruit. Papaya, watermelon, banana, all good for you and our little warrior, Kathy teased. You sound like a midwife now. Only the best for my girls, he joked, then paused, unsure. Sorry, It's okay, she interrupted gently. It sounded nice. He smiled, and they both knew something was shifting. That night, she struggled with the zipper of her maternity dress. It got stuck halfway. A light knock came at her door. Need help? Musa asked. She hesitated. Yes, but don't laugh. He stepped in, moved behind her, and carefully unzipped the dress. His fingers brushed her back. She shivered, but not from cold. All done, he said softly. Thanks, she whispered, cheeks flushed. Good night, Kathy. Good night, Musa. The door closed slowly, but sleep didn't come easily, not for either of them. In the days that followed, their connection deepened like a well filled quietly by daily rain. He brought her books. She made his tea exactly how he liked it. He noticed when her ankles swelled. She noticed when he stayed up late in thought. One morning, she caught him watching her from the hallway as she folded tiny baby clothes. Their eyes met and stayed. She didn't ask for love. She wasn't ready. But what was growing between them wasn't loud. It wasn't forced. It was kind. And for someone like Kathy, kindness was the most precious thing of all. The sky over Lagos was the color of melted steel, and the air heavy with that strange electricity that always came before a storm. Kathy stood in the garden behind Musa's house, her feet bare on the cool grass, one hand cradling the weight of her belly. She was 8 months now, her steps slower, breaths shallower, but her eyes, they shone with something new, peace. She had spent so long surviving that she almost forgot what stillness felt like. Kabiru passed by with a broom and paused, eyeing her carefully. Madam, he said, half joking, half concerned, if dat pekin decide say he want come early, na inside flower bed you go born M.O. She laughed. Don't worry. She knows to wait for her puff-puff to be ready. That night, the storm arrived. Rain pounded the windows, thunder cracked like old bones in the sky. Kathy had just finished her evening bath and was folding baby clothes when a sharp cramp twisted through her side. She gasped, dropping the cloth, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Another one came, harder, sharper. Her water broke. Panic rose like a flood, but she forced herself to breathe. Musa, she called. He was downstairs, halfway through writing an email, but when he heard her voice, tight, trembling, different, he didn't hesitate. He rushed upstairs and found her standing, drenched in sweat, eyes wide. It's time, she whispered. Now? Now. Kabiru appeared at the door, half-dressed, holding a flashlight and a car key. Oga, make we dey go now. Musa wrapped Kathy in a dry shawl, helped her down the stairs, his voice calm but urgent. You're okay. You're doing great. Just breathe. I'm right here. The drive through the rain was a blur. Kabiru drove like the devil was chasing him, his red cap turned backward. Kathy clutched Musa's hand, her nails digging into his skin with each contraction. He didn't flinch. He only whispered, You're strong. You've got this. In the delivery ward, under bright lights and sterile air, Kathy screamed, pushed, cried. And then a cry. Not hers. A high, piercing, furious cry that filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. It's a girl, the nurse said, smiling. A strong one. Musa covered his mouth, eyes flooding. The nurse placed the baby on Kathy's chest, tiny and red and perfect. Kathy sobbed, fingers trembling as she stroked the baby's cheek. Naomi, she whispered. Your name is Naomi. In the days that followed, the house changed. The silence was broken by soft wails, lullabies, whispered prayers. Musa, once the quiet businessman who dined alone and drank tea at precisely 7:00 p.m., now paced the hallway at 2:00 a.m. with a swaddled Naomi on his shoulder, humming off-key. He learned to change diapers with awkward hands, warm milk bottles without spilling, rock her to sleep with patience he never knew he had. Kathy watched him, heart swelling. He hadn't just shown up, he had stepped in. Entirely, completely. One night, as she fed Naomi by the window, moonlight casting silver shadows across the floor, Musa came in holding a small bowl. Papaya, crushed. You didn't eat lunch. She looked up, eyes tired but glowing. You remembered. I remember everything, he said, placing the bowl on the nightstand. She smiled. You don't have to do all this. I want to, he replied, sitting beside her. You've given me something I thought was gone forever. What's that? Family. They moved like a team. Kathy handled the feedings and baths. Musa took on laundry, bottle sterilizing, morning cuddles. Even Kabiru pitched in, often seen rocking Naomi on his lap in the front compound like a proud uncle. Dis pickin' fine, well, he said daily, as if in awe. She go break heart for this Logos. Musa laughed each time, shaking his head. Not if her mother has anything to say about it. Kathy, for her part, bloomed. She began cooking again, slowly at first, then with more energy. She sang as she stirred soup, tied colorful scarves around her head, wore soft dresses that let her move freely. Her laughter returned, and so did her fire. 3 months later, on a quiet Sunday, Musa asked her to step into the garden. The vines were in bloom, purple and pink, against the crumbling brick wall. Naomi was asleep in Kabiru's arms, who pretended not to be eavesdropping from the porch. Musa stood beneath the guava tree, hands in his pocket. Kathy approached, confused. What's wrong? He pulled out a small box and knelt. Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Kathy, I know what we are. I know what we've become. You've given me life again. Laughter. Home. Will you marry me? She stared, stunned, tears already spilling. But then she stepped back. Musa, she whispered, I can't. Not yet. I'm still married to Louis, legally. We never declared him dead. I can't marry until that's done. Musa nodded slowly. Then we'll do it. Together. Whatever it takes. And the following weeks were filled with forms. Visits to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, sworn affidavits, church declarations. Kathy returned to Lewis's village with Musa by her side. The elders acknowledged the death, papers were signed. Time at last was allowed to move forward. And when it did, it moved with grace. The wedding was simple, a garden ceremony. Naomi wore a tiny white dress and served as the flower girl, wobbling on unsteady legs. Kabiru wore his finest agbada and led the dance, shouting, "Make way for our mama-o," as guests roared with laughter. Musa stood beneath the same guava tree, dressed in cream and gold, eyes never leaving Kathy as she walked toward him in a dress of soft lace, her smile radiant. They exchanged vows under the open sky, hearts open, hands clasped. There was no grand orchestra, no rich audience, just two people who had been broken, mended, and now stood whole. 8 months later, something unexpected happened. Kathy began waking with nausea. Fatigue followed. Then came the cravings. At first, she dismissed it as stress. But when she fainted one morning while frying a kara, Musa insisted on taking her to the hospital. The test was quick. The results came faster. "You're pregnant," the doctor said. Kathy blinked. "How?" Musa held her hand. "Is it real?" The doctor nodded. "It's rare, but with the treatment he's been on and time, it's possible. This is a miracle." They wept, quietly, together. In the car ride home, neither spoke, but their hands stayed clasped the whole way. 9 months later, Kathy gave birth to a baby boy. They named him Elijah, a name of strength, of second chances. Musa held both children in his arms that night and whispered, "You've given me more than I ever dared to pray for." Kathy, lying in the hospital bed, reached for his face. "You gave me peace," she said. Years later, the once quiet house echoed with laughter, toys, and the smell of jollof rice. Kathy had started a home catering service. Musa continued running his business, but now worked fewer hours. Naomi grew into a curious, lively child. Elijah followed her like a shadow. Kabiru, now older, told everyone in the neighborhood, "Dis house, na movie way God right." And when people asked how they met, Musa would smile and say, "She sold Puff Puff in the rain." And Kathy, always smiling beside him, would say softly, "And he saw me when no one else did." The morning light filtered gently through the gauze curtains in the living room as Naomi ran barefoot across the marble floor, her tiny feet slapping playfully while Elijah chased behind her with a plastic toy truck. Kathy stood in the kitchen doorway, a soft smile blooming on her lips as she watched her children fill the house with noise, joy, and the kind of chaos she once thought she'd never know. Her eyes lifted to the window where sunlight spilled across the garden, bouncing off the newly painted fence and the wide leaves of the guava tree, where she and Musa had exchanged vows not so long ago. The air smelled of home-cooked ogbono soup and fried plantains, and the soft hum of the blender in the background made everything feel whole. Musa stepped into the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, holding 2 bowls of sliced pawpaw. "I cut them the way you like," he said, offering one to her. Kathy accepted it, their fingers brushing. "You're getting too good at this," she teased. "I'm just trying to keep up with the CEO of Mama Naomi's kitchen." She laughed, leaning slightly against the counter. Her small, home-based catering business had grown faster than she ever expected. Orders poured in daily. Clients from estates and offices placed bookings for her puff puff, jollof rice, and grilled tilapia like they were delicacies from heaven. Kabiru, ever proud, had become her unofficial marketer, handing out flyers and boasting at the barber shop. "My madam food, the better miracle. A heal belly, a heal soul." Kathy now had 2 assistants helping her prep in the mornings, and a small signboard at the front of the compound read, "Mama Naomi's Taste, Real Food, Real Love." Later that afternoon, as the kids napped, Musa and Kathy sat on the porch, sipping Zobo and watching the wind stir the bougainvillea petals into a lazy dance. "Do you remember the first time you sat here?" he asked. She nodded. "I was scared, tired, ready to run. And now?" She turned to him, her face calm. "Now I'm here." He smiled and reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded paper. "The doctor gave this to me this morning," he said. "It's official. My sperm count is now within normal range." Kathy's eyes widened. "You serious?" He nodded. "They said it's rare, but it's real." She reached for the paper, scanned it with trembling hands. That's incredible." "I owe it to you," he said. "The food, the care, the peace. You healed me, Kathy." She shook her head gently. "We healed each other." That evening, as they prepared dinner together, Elijah toddled in holding a wooden spoon like a scepter. "Daddy," he said proudly, "I help." Musa knelt and lifted him into his arms. "Of course you help. You're the chief taster." Naomi peeked in behind him, her eyes wide. "And me?" "You're the boss," Kathy said. "Without you, the kitchen shuts down." The children giggled, and for a while the air was filled with laughter, sizzling onions, and the crackle of joy. Later, after dinner and bedtime stories, when the house had gone quiet, except for the chirping outside and the hum of the fan, Kathy lay beside Musa in bed, eyes staring at the ceiling. "Do you think," she asked softly, "we were meant to meet?" Musa turned to her, his arm slipping under her neck. "I don't know about fate," he whispered, "but I know I was lost. And then I found you." "I was broken," she murmured, "and then you held the pieces without asking for anything." "That's because you held mine, too," he replied. Months passed. Naomi started school. Elijah began speaking more words each day. The house was never silent, never cold. One afternoon, while Kathy delivered lunch boxes to an estate client, she overheard 2 women chatting. "I heard the woman who owns that puff-puff business was once a roadside seller," one said. "Married a rich man. Lucky girl." The other scoffed. "Must be one of those pity marriages." Kathy didn't flinch. She walked past them, head held high. At home, she found Musa in the backyard, watering the hibiscus. "Do you think people think you married me out of pity?" she asked. He paused, set the watering can down, and walked over to her. "If they do, they've clearly never tasted your puff-puff." She laughed despite herself. "I'm serious." "So am I," he said, cupping her face. "I married you because you're the strongest woman I've ever met. And because when I come home and see you here, this house stops being a house and becomes home." She blinked back tears. "Say that again." "You," he whispered, "are my home." Years rolled gently forward. Naomi turned 5, her curls bouncing as she danced in the living room, dragging Elijah into her imaginary kingdoms. Kabiru, now with gray at his temples, still greeted guests with, "Madame de Cook, today go sweet." The business expanded. Kathy opened a small shop outside the estate. Customers waited in lines that wrapped around the block. She trained young girls from poor backgrounds, teaching them not just how to cook, but how to stand tall. We cook with pride, she always said, because survival is sacred. One rainy morning, as thunder rumbled far off, Kathy stood by the window watching the drops fall in steady rhythm. Musa came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "Still love the rain?" he asked. "I hated it once," she said. "It reminded me of everything I lost. But now—" She leaned back into him. "Now it reminds me of the day you pulled up in a black SUV and asked for hot yam balls like a spoiled prince." He laughed. "You charged me extra, by the way." "Because you were rude," she said. "Because you were beautiful," he countered. They stood there quietly, the rain falling, their hearts full. That evening at dinner, Naomi asked, "Mama, how did you meet Daddy?" Kathy and Musa exchanged a glance. Then Kathy leaned forward. "I was selling Puff Puff in the rain, and your father, he was hungry. But he didn't just see the food, he saw me, really saw me." Musa nodded. "And she fed me something that healed more than my stomach." Naomi looked confused. "Like medicine?" "Better," Musa said. "Like love." And when the lights dimmed and the children slept and the world outside kept spinning, Musa and Kathy lay beside each other, hands intertwined. No need for words. Their journey had been long, painful, extraordinary. Two broken people who found each other not because of fate, not because of miracle, but because when kindness knocks, sometimes we open the door. And inside that door, a whole new life begins.